Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Middlesex County Council meeting for Tuesday, May the 11th. It's been just about a month since we were last together, and in many ways, things have not changed. We have all been busy in our communities, supporting our residents and small businesses, trying to be encouraging during this lockdown. I know from my own interactions, this lockdown seems to be taking its toll on everyone. This one seems particularly difficult. Last week was Mental Health Week, and I do hope that people took the opportunity to assess their own mental well-being and to take stock of where they are at. I know I did. I actually stepped away from my professional commitments for a few days. And I know it wasn't like going on a typical vacation. I certainly missed my umbrellas and my drinks and the sun and the sand in my toes. But it was an opportunity for me to take some time away to refresh and recharge. A reminder that we have many community resources available to aid those that might require more assistance when it comes to mental health and well-being. This week is National Nurses Week, and the theme this year is We Answer the Call. Whether you are a nurse at a doctor's office, a nurse in long-term care, a nurse working in public health, or a nurse working in a hospital setting, you certainly have answered the call. Your compassion and dedication has been highlighted for all of us the past 15 months, something that I think in many ways we took for granted before the pandemic. Thank you just does not seem adequate, but it is said with conviction and with meaning. If you have a nurse in your circle, please take the time to acknowledge them. As I mentioned earlier, it seems that we are feeling the stressors of this latest lockdown. We've seen many unique ways of people trying to lift spirits. One clever campaign has really taken communities by storm. It started in Sarnia a few weeks ago, and the campaign certainly has gained traction. I know many of our communities have joined in. However, Thames Centre has to be acknowledged for getting into the sign wars. Many of the local businesses have gotten creative and challenged other businesses with some great signs, and it certainly has brought smiles and laughter to many. Not to be left out, our library system has jumped in. And so I want to congratulate the Thorndale and Dorchester branches. Well done. Thorndale started it and Dorchester answered the call when challenged. And I think Chris has the evidence to show and share. So this is the Thorndale Library. We will Dewey decimate you. And then Dorchester responded. ISBN thinking, your boast is fiction. So I want to certainly thank Lindsay for sharing that, and kudos to the two branches for jumping in. As I said, it certainly has brought a lot of smiles to a lot of faces during this time. And Thames Centre, you know, Allison and Kelly, your businesses have to be commended because they have like taken this on with so much conviction. So thanks for that. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, was there any business arising from the minutes that were circulated? So the minutes from our April 13th meeting were circulated, and I trust that you've all had time to go through them. And if there's nothing to amend, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes as presented. Councillor Mayhew and Councillor Elliott. All opposed? And that's carried. We have no deputations, inquiries, or notices of motion.
Yes, Madam Warden.
Councillor Mayhew.
Yes, thank you very much. Through you, Madam Warden. I wish to advise County Council of a notice of motion that I'll be bringing forth in these chambers at the May 25th Council meeting, 2021. Yesterday, May 10th, I was advised of another collision at the corner of Glendon Drive and Melbourne Road. This corner has had an accumulation of accident history through no fault of engineering, but entirely on poor driving habits. It's a conversation of concern that is brought to me weekly by individuals in my municipality. I have had discussions with Middlesex County staff in the past expressing my concern. These began on December 18th of 2019, and again, I brought them forward on January 22nd and April 24th of 2020. Improvements were made. They go beyond the requirements of existing regulations. There have been larger stop signs, intensive rumble strips, weed control, and even I and my CAO arranged for the relocation of private signage. And I am very much appreciative of all those improvements. In my discussions, I have been a proponent of the effectiveness of light as a vehicle for awareness and suggested strongly that this intersection be a pilot project for 2 LED stop signs. These are very cost effective and may enhance awareness at historically problematic intersections. The elements of light, it's effective in daylight hours as well as evening hours. They are in use in other county jurisdictions with a history of benefit and that can alert drivers up to 800 meters. I respectfully advise council and staff that I will bring forth a notice of motion at the May 25th meeting of Middlesex County Council that the corner of Glendon Drive and Melbourne Road be a pilot project for 2 LED stop signs in the north and southbound lanes, and that staff procure and have commissioned products suitable for the application. And this be observed as a pilot project for a period of 2 years and to be assessed in regards to the enhancement of visibility, their durability, and their cost effectiveness. Madam Warden, I assure you that I'll contact the clerk over the next few days to arrange this. Should any of council or staff have questions or comments, I trust you will offer that to them, and thank you very much. And I'm certainly available at any time through the week, should you wish to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Mayhew. Any other inquiries or notices of motion? Okay, moving into reports and new business. And the first one in front of us is the Thames-Sydenham Source Water Protection Committee appointment. And Dirk will be speaking to that.
Thank you, Madam Warden. You've seen a report like this in the past, and it's really just as a necessary with the turnover of staff. But in short, the Clean Water Act provides for the goal of protecting drinking source water protection, and that includes policies and also a process that includes the establishment of a committee to monitor it. It's the county's responsibility to appoint the member on behalf of the county and the City of London, actually. But having said that, we've done that in the past cooperatively with Thames Centre and Middlesex Centre because the drinking water systems are really only in those 2 municipalities. So working with the CAOs at Thames Centre and Middlesex Centre, we have come to an agreement that Mr. Jared Craven, Director of Public Works for Thames Centre, be appointed as the staff person to take on that 4-year term. In terms of financial implications, none for the county. And in terms of alignment with strategic focus, I do believe it fits under the promoting service excellence in terms of leveraging available resources and opportunities. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Dirk. Any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, you do have a proposed recommendation and motion in front of you, and I would look for a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Vanderheyden and Councillor DeViet. All opposed? And that's carried. Councillor comments. Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention that tomorrow evening or Thursday evening, sorry, my week is getting away from me already. We're having an opportunity to speak to a large area of Lambton County. It's called the Gene Collection, and the Middlesex County Women's Caucus will have an opportunity to have dialogue with the women that are, we're going to be the panel. And they're going to ask all kinds of questions. So it's another opportunity to share what we're doing with our broader region. And I just have to say, I'm really proud of the councillor, the mayors and deputy mayors that are working on this. It has almost been cathartic for myself to do this. I will confess that, because I have learned so much from the people that we have connected with in our region, the ministers that we've connected with. And it's just been really an interesting way during pandemic to understand what's going on in people's lives and how we can help as politicians to even make a small dent by taking those issues that are shared with us and lobbying or advocating on their behalf. So it's been really, really interesting. And this is another opportunity for us. I know we have another bunch of things we're working on, but I'll let Kelly speak to that. And I just wanted to update you on some of the things that we are working on in that regard. I apologize today. I'm on 2 calls at the same time. I'm also talking on the other computer about gender violence and women in political offices moving forward with the federal government. So I don't have a speaking role there. I'm just listening, but I just wanted to make sure that, just in case you're wondering what I'm doing here, that's part of Zoom meetings. You don't drive anywhere. You just do more than one meeting at a time. So thank you for your patience, and I appreciate the opportunity to mention what we're doing.
Thanks for that, Councillor Vanderheyden. Councillor Elliott.
Yes, and through you, the warden, another project of the Women's Caucus. We've been really busy working on different things, but our next webinar, we're actually hosting an awards ceremony for women across the county who have stepped up over the last year and who have been leaders in their community across the county. So our awards ceremony is called Middlesex's Leading Ladies. And we're accepting nominations until May 31st. And nominations can be emailed to us at womenscaucus@middlesex.ca, and just let us know who the woman is, what they have done in their community, and what community they live in. And we will be selecting the award winners, and the event will be held on Thursday, June the 10th at 7 o'clock. And we have a registration, and anyone interested can contact anyone on the Women's Caucus, and we can forward that registration to attend that event.
Great. Thank you for that update. Any other councillor comments? Okay, then moving on into bylaws. Kathy. Oh, I guess it's going to be deferred until the end of the meeting. Sorry, I guess I should read all my notes. Okay, moving into the committee of the whole. First one we've got is a report from Cindy with regards to
Sorry, Madam Warden, can we have a motion to defer them, please?
Oh, we need a motion to defer. Okay. All right. Sorry. Motion to defer the bylaws to the end of the meeting. Councillor Warwick and Councillor Richards. All opposed. And that's carried. Okay, now moving into the committee of the whole with a report from Cindy with regards to CHPI and the Social Services Relief Fund summary.
Thanks, and through the warden. Chris, can you put up the presentation? There you go. Great, thank you. Thanks, and through the warden. Today, Pauline, Andrew, and I are providing council with an update on community homelessness prevention initiatives. Next. Each year, the county receives funding through the province for the Homelessness Prevention Initiative, which is known as CHPI. This program aims to prevent and end homelessness. Next. This slide shows the CHPI allocations for the period 2019 to 2022. Funding is allocated from April to March each year. Quarterly reports are completed for the service manager and the province. For the current period of 2021 to 2022, the allocation is approximately $119,000. The county receives approximately 1% of the total service manager allocation. Next. Traditionally, the CHPI program in the county provides support such as payment, for first and last month's rent, deposit for utilities, arrears for unpaid rent, and utility arrears. Next. The CHPI program in 2020 and 2021 was also able to support the local food banks and meal programs and other emergency needs. The current CHPI plan is to continue to fund the traditional programs, including the Community Navigator pilot program, in collaboration with the library and other emerging needs. The Community Navigator for the period of January to March 2021 was able to connect with over 300 households, so I definitely would say it's a success. This includes people experiencing homelessness or at risk of being homelessness. Next. So in response to COVID-19, the province provided additional funds under the Social Service Relief Fund, also known as SSRF. Funding was provided in 3 phases and streamlined and reported through the provincial CHPI program. SSRF Phase One was announced in March of 2020 with the goal to protect the health and safety of the province's most vulnerable during the COVID-19 pandemic. Consistent with CHPI funding, the City of London as a service manager allocated the county approximately $36,000 for Phase One, which was 1% of the total service manager allocation. Next. In Phase One, the county focused on supporting our 8 local food banks and meal programs, emergency hotel accommodations, and other critical community supports, such as local transportation, grocery cards, cell phones, and household items. Pauline is going to go through the next few slides.
Thanks, Cindy. In August 2020, to accommodate the ongoing COVID-19 pressures, the province announced additional social service relief funds known as Phase Two. The service manager was provided an allocation from the province, but was also asked for a business case to support the allocation. The city reached out and asked the county to prepare a business case to support our community needs. The SSRF Phase Two was intended to provide ongoing services and supports to address immediate pandemic needs of vulnerable people. Next. This one-time funding had to be spent by March 31st, 2021, and included both operational and capital funding. Next. Social services reached out to community partners and local municipalities to understand the impacts and financial challenges that community agencies and residents were experiencing. This information was used to prepare the business case that was submitted to the service manager and province. Community providers completed request forms to receive the funding. Next. The good news is that the final amount received and spent in Phase Two was approximately $344,000. That included capital and operating. Next. This chart breaks down how the funding was allocated and spent. The overages on the chart were covered by the CHPI program. In Phase Two, the county was able to support the most vulnerable in programs that included emergency hotel accommodations, community food banks and meal programs, community programs and partnerships with local agencies such as WRC, 37 Frank Youth Center, YOU Next Wave, Goodwill, Red Cross, Victim Services, and CMHA. The county also received capital funding for YOU Next Wave for building renovations to support their youth housing and homeless programming. The county was able to support hundreds of residents directly and indirectly with community partners. Next. In March 2021, the province announced funding for SSRF Phase 3. The intention of Phase 3 is to continue to help a diverse range of vulnerable people to meet their short-term critical needs. Only operational funds were provided in this phase. Next. This phase of funding has to be spent by December 31st, 2021. The county was required to complete an investment plan by mid-March. Next. The slide outlines the investment plan that was provided and approved by the service manager and province. We received approval last week. This plan builds on supports that were funded in previous phases, best practices, and responds to the input from our community members. Phase 3 also includes the Middlesex County Housing Benefit and funding for transportation for medical and COVID-related needs. The Middlesex County Housing Benefit is a limited amount of funds available to temporarily assist individuals and families secure, stabilize, and retain market rent housing while waiting for social housing or housing that is more affordable. Next. Social Services has worked closely with the City of London as the service manager regarding SSRF and the development of the business cases. We are grateful to the Ministry for this funding to support our most vulnerable. However, a reminder that the SSRF allocations are one-time and Phase 3 ends in December 2021. Next. The need for homeless supports and programs have increased, and the expectation is that they will continue to increase. Social Services will continue to work with the City of London as the service manager, local municipalities, and our community partners to address these needs and look for additional funding opportunities. Next. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that, Cindy and Pauline. It's great to see the investments that have been made and how the money that was given and approved to us was used. And I think we can all be assured that certainly those monies were put to good use, and many of our residents benefited from that. So thank you for that update. Councillor, questions or comments? Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to Cindy and Ms. Andrews, just a comment. I noticed in your slideshow presentation, you had community programs, and I think it was around 100,000 plus that was allocated to that. Southwest Middlesex has an organization that was the recipient of that, and I think it may have came out of that cell. We serve over 160 hot meals a week, and we couldn't do that without the contribution from your social service entity. Not only are you helping these people that are partaking of this service, but you are keeping alive the organizations that are actually doing the elbow work. And on behalf of Southwest Middlesex and the 160 meals people that have those meals on a weekly basis, we certainly thank you very much. It's really special. And it's gotten the attention of a lot of our neighboring communities in the Four Counties region of the effectiveness and the relief it's brought. And we're actually almost a case study out here in terms of how we service those that are vulnerable. Thank you again.
Thanks for that, Alan. Any other comments or questions on the report that was presented to us? Okay. Thanks again, Cindy and Pauline.
Ina had a question.
Oh, did
Kathy,
she? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Ina. I didn't see you. Oh, I think because you're on my other screen. That's why.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Warden. Through you to either Cindy or Pauline. When I look at this, there was a slide that noted, and also Cindy noted in her comments that we typically get 1% historically, and then the one allocation that would be SSRF 1 was also about 1%. But I noticed by the time we get through to stage 2 and 3, and if I take the whole thing in total, we're close to 8% of the allocation, which is based, I think, partly on the fact that you presented a business case and said, we need this money. And you said, where do we need it? And I don't know if you got everything you asked for, but it's certainly more than 1%. Can you comment on how those numbers actually relate to what you asked for? And is this a better way of doing things? Or I just wonder about the 1% versus how we managed to get more money. I know there's more need too, but as a proportion of the city though, it's a significant raise that we got.
Through the warden, definitely I can start that response, Councillor, and Pauline, you can chip in if you have anything to add. Yes, I would say that after we got the 1%, if you remember, Council asked me to go back and have discussions with the City of London in regards to our funding allocation and our needs. So when phase 2 came around, the City of London did respond out to us and asked us to prepare a business case. So we quickly got together, and it was Joe, Pauline, and myself, to talk to the community and find out what the needs are. So our first round for phase 2 was based on what we heard from the community. And yes, we did get all of the money that we applied for. And then when phase 3 came around, the same thing applied. The City of London again reached out to us and asked us to complete a business plan. And we did. We reached out to our community. We looked at best practices, and what we asked for, we again received. So we're very grateful.
As am I. I think it's needed, and it's good to see that the monies were put to use in a variety of organizations and communities, and that people who needed it got it. So thank you for all your efforts, Cindy and Pauline.
Pauline, I see that you're unmuted. Did you want to add anything to what Cindy said?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other councillor comments on this? Okay, thanks again, Pauline and Cindy. That was great. We do have a delegation that's scheduled for 2 o'clock, and in talking to Kathy beforehand, we can skip over that and then come back at 2 when the presenter will join us. So that will take us into action items, and the first one actually goes hand in hand with the delegation that's scheduled for 2. So we'll skip over that and we'll move into the second one, and that's the proposed draft plan of subdivision for the Township of Lucan-Biddulph. And Dirk will speak to this one and walk us through.
Thank you, Madam Warden. This is a relatively small property within Lucan, and the development would create 12 lots for single detached dwellings, the extension of some existing roads, and then a block for the future development, likely by way of townhomes. So the property, if you're familiar with Lucan, is just north of the water tower, north of William Street. Attached to the report are the local planning reports and the additional information. And I would say it was a fairly straightforward application, with the exception that there are industrial uses, a number of them immediately adjacent to the south of the property. So through the local process, amendments to the plan were made, some additional noise analysis was undertaken, and a peer review on behalf of the township by another engineering firm. But in the end, we are at the point now that Lucan-Biddulph Council in March did support the proposal. And I am now recommending approval subject to conditions to satisfy the Conservation Authority, the municipality, the county engineer, and then in particular for the municipality, just the noise, so additional noise measures, final studies, etc. So in the end, in terms of planning analysis, as you know, the provincial policy statement, the county's official plan, and also the Lucan-Biddulph official plan do direct growth to occur within settlement areas on full municipal services. And this would meet all of those policy tests in my view. So I am recommending approval subject to conditions.
Thank you for that, Dirk. Any questions or comments on this report? Okay, you do have a recommendation in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor Corey Nielsen and Councillor Ropp. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Dirk's got a full plate in front of him today. This one is a Village of Newbury official plan project. Dirk.
Thank you, Madam Ward. And it is busy in the county, which is a good thing, of course. This is something that the County Council hasn't dealt with and we haven't done before. So I wanted to bring it before you up front, before we spent any time or effort on it, to make sure that County Council shared the same view on it. So essentially, Newbury's official plan is from 1985, and it doesn't reflect current policy practices or requirements, really. It is on our radar to help Newbury work on a new official plan. But rather than start a new official plan from scratch, what I would like to try in this case is incorporate Newbury's policies into the county's official plan. And you're familiar, of course, with your local municipalities, where traditionally we have a county official plan. Each local municipality has a local official plan, and the level of detail and the policies are adjusted for that. However, Newbury is a village without a large land base, and many of the policies and the things that would be in a local official plan have limited applicability to Newbury. So I gave some examples for natural heritage, aggregate resources, county transportation network, those sort of things. So what we would like to try to do is rely on the county's official plan for those general things, for most of the policies, and then include a chapter to address the more detailed things, residential development, the main street, the hospital area also. So we did speak with the province to confirm that it is permitted by the Planning Act. And there are a few other counties that we had a student planner kind of do some research that have taken this approach, where some local municipalities are in the county's official plan and others have their own official plan. If you're open to this, we'd have to look at our administrative practices, and you could think of if there was an amendment to the Newbury official plan section in the future, that meeting should be held in Newbury, not at the county council, and some sort of motion be made and those sort of things. But I'll be frank, I haven't looked into that in great detail. So I guess in summary, their official plan is outdated, frankly, and does need to be updated or done anew. And rather than do a new official plan, we would like to explore this hybrid approach, which I think would save resources for the county and for Newbury. And then I do put the caveat in there, of course, even if council was to accept this process, it doesn't presuppose county council's responsibility as the approval authority for any official plan amendment in the future. In terms of alignment with strategic focus, I think it would fit under strengthening our economy and also promoting service excellence through a innovative and municipal service delivery. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Madam Warden.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dirk. Questions or comments from council on this? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yes, thank you, through the warden. On the first blush of reading this, I don't have any objections to this. I think it might be a really cool kind of way to dovetail that together. The only thing I had a question with, and you kind of touched on that, and that's any conflicts that may arise, because as you said, both are different and yet they're the same. So there's things that will be in the one that don't need to be in the other, and how does that dovetail, and how do we make sure that any of those conflicts with one plan don't happen legally?
Through the warden, it's a good question, something I've been thinking about, and I've only talked to one other county so far, so I think that would be part, if council was open to this, I would speak to some others and how they kind of approach this. But in the end, county council is the approval authority, whether it's your own official plan and an amendment to it, or whether Newbury or any municipality has their local official plan. So in the end, I do think it's council that will have to make that decision. But generally Newbury's, it is a pretty succinct municipality, if we call it that. So there would be the sort of the main street policies and the development policies, and beyond that, I think that most development matters within Newbury could be handled through the existing county official plan policies. So there ought not to be sort of those conflicts.
Thank you. If I could have follow up, well, there ought not to be, but it's in my mind, it's almost like your auditor doing some of your books for you. So I don't know. That's where my brain was going. So I just want to make sure that everything's that it's good for Newbury and good for the county. Like it has to work for both of us in order to make sure that this works. On the first blush, like I said, I think, wow, that's a very cool idea to help a community. But I just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And I know staff will do that. That was my concern.
Thanks for that, Councillor Vanderheyden. Councillor Warwick.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And through the warden to Dirk. And I just might be a bit of a naive question. I can see how this would represent savings for Newbury. How does it represent savings for the county?
Through the warden, there's a couple things that are going on right now. I guess it's just because the document, frankly, is very out of date, and their zoning bylaw is too. It's kind of an unwieldy thing to deal with some development, and we've had a number of official plan amendments there in the last few years. Even just something as simple as how to deal with development on the main street, it just doesn't reflect sort of current practices. So there's a bit of savings there. It's minor, to be frank. And then the other part is we do, through the county's budget process, try to work with every municipality and do project work. And so, Newbury's OP is one of the things that's on our lengthy list of projects to undertake. And I think this would be less work, frankly, than doing a new official plan or an entirely new official plan.
That's good, Councillor Warwick. Okay, Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Warden. To Dirk. Dirk, there was some language in your report that I liked. And just perhaps if you could give a brief explanation on it. It said a plan that reflects local priorities and circumstances. I like those words. And in the mosaic of Middlesex County, there can be differences in those local priorities and circumstances, even between Newbury and Southwest Middlesex. There's different personalities involved, there's different characters, there's different landscapes involved, and goals and ambitions sometimes may differ as well. So in terms of the component that reflects local priorities and circumstances, how do you deal with that? And what is your opinion on that vocabulary?
It's a good question through the warden. Our downtowns and how different municipalities are developed, you could picture, what is appropriate in Strathroy, and the level of the intensity or the density and the type form of development is different than, in the, let's say, on the main street of Thorndale or Newbury. So there are those differences. We of course have to keep in mind that it's a provincially led planning system. So there are certain thresholds that are in the provincial policy statement, and then that are carried through the county's official plan that must be met. So, full services, development occurring within urban areas as opposed to rural areas, the protection of wetlands, and there are some of those sort of lines in the sand, if you will, that need to be carried through the documents. But beyond that, it is quite, if someone was looking for something to do on the weekend, you could look at the different official plans across the county, and there is a fair amount of difference, surprisingly, just in how communities develop and what the policies say. So I do think there is that room for, individualized planning policies. And when I think of Newbury, like the one thing that stands up to me is the hospital and some of the economic development opportunities that might surround there. There are a couple of clinic type uses, I think, that are there, and whether there's opportunities for the village to promote that and have policies that are specialized to that. That would be one example, I guess I would give.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Smith.
Through the warden to Dirk. So reading through this report, I see that the Village of Newbury, the administration is, talked to planning staff. Just wondering, and looking at the recommendation, it says it's really getting our endorsement of this concept from County Council. Has this been discussed at Newbury Council? And is this the way they're looking at going, or is this more of an administrative discussion right now with the option if County Council endorses this, that then the Newbury Council has this option in front of them?
Through the warden, I understand that Newbury Council did already discuss this and would like to pursue this. Okay,
that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, so there is a recommendation in front of you, and I would look for a mover and seconder at this time. Councillor Brennan. and Councillor Mayhew. All opposed? And that's carried. And just in case anybody didn't catch that, there is a long weekend coming up. So if you're looking for some reading, Dirk has given us a great idea of how we could spend our downtime. So thanks for that, Dirk. I'm sure many of us will take you up on that. Okay, continuing with Dirk, North Middlesex Official Plan Amendment, number 13.
Thank you, Madam Warden. This is in North Middlesex, corner of Petty and Fletcher. It's a small 2.5 acre property. And essentially, the planning regime, the provincial planning regime allows for a garden suite or granny suite, as we used to call it, for a 20-year planning horizon, or 20 years. The North Middlesex official plan is more restrictive and limits those to 3 years. In this particular case, the owner is seeking to go for that longer time period. So an OPA was necessary, an amendment was necessary, sorry. The municipality are satisfied. There are criteria that are in the local official plan to consider the 3-year ones. They're satisfied that all of those are met, and there were no oral or written submissions received at the statutory public meeting. So I am recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Dirk. Any questions or comments on this report? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that's in front of you. Councillor Vanderheyden and Councillor Richards. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, this next report is from Brent, and it's with regards to the approved capital budget project replacement of Strathmere Lodge's building access control system. Brent.
Yes, through the warden, further to council's approval of the Lodge's 2021 capital budget, the Lodge requested proposals to replace its building access control system via bids and tenders, the procurement website. We did receive 7 proposals, and they were scored against the 5 proposal evaluation criteria that we had for the RFP. The proposal submitted by KR Communications Limited ranked highest among the 7 proposals received and evaluated, and came in at a cost within the budget approved by council. As such, I am recommending that council approve the Lodge entering into an agreement with KR Communications to replace the Lodge's building access control system at a cost of $77,898 before taxes. Happy to field any council questions in support of the recommendation.
Great, thanks, Brent. Councillor Ropp.
Yes, thank you. Through the warden to Brent. Brent, does this include like a service, any problems with the lock system that they look after it? Is there a service agreement?
Yes, through the warden, yes, it would.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Other questions or clarifications? Okay, and then as Brent read out the recommendation, I would ask for a mover and seconder on that, please. Councillor Mayhew and Councillor DeVete. All opposed? And that's carried. Moving on to correspondence and information items. General payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $296,342.32. Planning payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $7,838.75. Electronic payments for the month of April 2021, totaling $2,087,586.34. Social service payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $653,488.73. Strathmere Lodge payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $200,665.11. Road payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $998,797.34. MLPS payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $1,543,490.27. ITS payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $206,657.46. Economic Development payables to April 30th, 2021, totaling $22,494.89. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive those items for information, please? Councillor Warwick and a seconder. Councillor Smith. All opposed. And that's carried. Strathmere Lodge Occupancy and Activity Report from March 2021. Proposed changes to certain land division provisions in the Planning Act. And I believe, Dirk, that you wanted to kind of highlight a few things on this.
Thank you, Madam Warden. If I could briefly, it's a number of amendments to the Planning Act that are sort of technical, administrative, or procedural, if you will. But they do in part address a concern that County Council has expressed and that the warden at the time wrote to the minister on, in terms of preventing lands merging in ownership with the death of a spouse and similar circumstances like that. There are also some other things in there that I think are a pretty good idea. Things like right now, as you know, consents are only for a 1-year time period. They must be satisfied within that 1 year before they're finalized. This would allow a person to apply for an additional year and the committee to grant that additional year if there's reason. And then some sort of technical things like right now, the certificates are only for the severed lands, and it can cause some sort of legal confusion for the retained lands, where a certificate could be issued for both properties. And then it would even allow for a municipality, for a person to apply to a municipality for a certificate of canceling a consent. And it's always been something that has been some damage, changing the lot slightly with a writing in some of those things. So there are a number of things that in there that I think would address some concerns that council has had, and it'll be interesting to sort of see if the province does move forward with this.
Hey, thanks for that, Dirk. Any questions or comments on that?
You and I, Warden, should probably get together and do something to our cabinet ministers to make them understand what we support and what we don't, so we can do that for the next meeting maybe.
Okay, well, I guess that was going to be my follow-up if council didn't have anything. Well, no, I was just going to suggest, like, are we going to follow up on this, given that, as Dirk said, there are things that have been concerned. So, okay, you and I can circle back then, Bill, on that.
Yeah, it's a very high percentage of things that we should be happy about in here, I think. So we should be supportive for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, copy of a letter from the Middlesex Federation of Agriculture to the Middlesex London Health Unit with respect to COVID-19 vaccination of agriculture and farm workers, along with a response from the Middlesex London Health Unit. Copy of the minutes of the Middlesex County Economic Resiliency Task Force meeting held on April 7th, 2021. Copy of the summary from the COVID-19 business check-in survey dated April 12th, 2021. AMO updates from April 12th to May 3rd, 2021. Copy of a letter from MPAC announcing the release of the 2020 annual report. Copy of the minutes of the County City Liaison Committee meeting held on April 8th, 2021. Bill?
Oh, I was just going to tell you, Warden, that the letter that was to be in there related to social housing. We just got completed. I don't know if you saw a copy of it when you were away, but we just got a copy of it done yesterday. So that's going out, and we'll get everybody on council a copy of that shortly.
Okay, thank you. Social service update report from Cindy. Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to accept those items for information? Councillor Vanderhayden and a seconder, Councillor Mayhew. All opposed? And that's carried. Any inquiries? All right, so we've got new business in front of us. Next meeting is the May 25th. We do go into closed session, but I'm assuming we're going to do that after our 2 o'clock delegation and then the subsequent report. So I am thinking, since we have 10 minutes, that we'll take a 10-minute recess and then reconvene until just a couple minutes before 2. Councillor Warwick? Make a motion?
Motion, yeah.
Okay. Make a motion for a recess. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Elliott. All opposed? All right, and we'll see you back about 1:58, 1:59.
Chris, in the interest of saving bandwidth, should we stop and start again, or what?
That'll cut the YouTube stream, so I think we should just keep it how it is for now. Just everyone with their
Okay.
cameras off.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I guess it's just 10 minutes of dead air.
Hey Jen, it's Bill here. We're just taking a recess until 2 o'clock, just so you know.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Okay, I guess it's 2 o'clock, so I will reconvene our meeting. Get back to that page. Okay, so we are headed back to delegations, and looks like Mr. Morris has joined us. So we do have a delegation that's scheduled for 2 o'clock, and it's in response or in conversation about the Strathroy Caradoc Official Plan Amendment number 12, number 12, North Meadows Secondary Plan, and the file number is before you. And joining us is Michael Morris, and he's got a presentation for council at this time. So over to you, Mr. Morris.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Warden and County Council members. My wife, Nancy, and I have many concerns regarding what the North Meadows Secondary Plan means to potential buyers, home builders, present and future residents of this area. The town will now have different zoning bylaws for different areas. How confusing will that be? In a town's zest to create affordable housing, we have eliminated what we call the silent majority, the middle class. That has been the basis of Strathroy's residential development for many years. The new building restrictions will dictate the detailed design of buildings, building material, window orientation, etc. The limit the garage width to less than half the width of the home will mean a single garage will be the maximum allowed, and it will be required to be behind the facade of the front of the home. The lot size will have a maximum width of about 40 feet to accommodate the self-imposed density requirements. Most people come to Strathroy because of lower home prices and larger lots compared to London or Toronto. Well, the larger lot will be a thing of the past if this plan goes through, and the bureaucracy has delayed development of this and other subdivisions within the town, which has created a high demand for lots at almost any price. What is the purpose of an official plan? It's to create a plan of orderly development of an area and to ensure that one type of usage does not negatively affect the value or quiet enjoyment of another property. We have a substantial home and on a large lot, as do the neighbors at 400 and 420 2nd Street. And what does the municipality do? They designated most of our properties, but not all of the land and the land around it as medium density, which means, of course, townhouses and low-rise apartment buildings without any buffer, which devalues our property. Now, you might say that a higher density zone increases our value, and that would be true if the land did not have substantial buildings on it. Our home and lot exceeds the value of vacant multifamily land, as do the above mentioned neighbors. That is why Strathroy's FD under section 26 of purpose and intent zone states undeveloped lands, not underdeveloped lands. There is a difference. We believe the new North Meadows Secondary Plan should be altered to have a low density zone for all our properties and the lands around it to a distance of 300 feet or 90 meters from our property lines. That would allow a street to encircle our properties with single family homes on both sides. Now that would be good planning. We are very much pro development, but with a common sense approach. We understand that it is beyond the capability of this council today to make those types of changes. So we are requesting that this plan be sent back to the municipality to make the changes and bring it forward at a later date. That's sort of the summation of what I have to say, and thanks for hearing our concerns. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Morrish. And we usually don't have a dialogue between presenter and council, but thank you very much for your comments. With that, we'll move into the report from Dirk into the action items.
Thank you, Madam Ward. The municipality established a plan for the North Strathroy, fairly large separate properties. And if you're familiar with Strathroy, it's on the south side of 2nd Street across the road from the high schools and the Gemini. The lands are already it's important to note that the lands are already within the designated development area of Strathroy, but there is a special provision that a secondary plan has to be undertaken to sort of comprehensively plan for the entire area prior to individual development applications being brought forward. The secondary plan is essentially an amendment to the official plan that looks at matters like transportation, parks and rec, parkland, municipal servicing, et cetera, but for the entire lands as opposed to one property at a time, if you will. So the amendment number 12 would amend Strathroy Caradoc's official plan to include the North Strathroy secondary plan into it. And I should note that Jennifer Huff, the manager of building and planning for Strathroy Caradoc, is in attendance on the call in case or should council have any sort of local questions or questions of a local nature. So in the analysis section of my report, I won't go into all the details, but I do review that the secondary plan, it was an extensive process and study that was undertaken. There were several background reports, urban design, transportation, trails and open space, environment, hazards, land use concepts and servicing that were all undertaken by consultants for the municipality, as well as an extensive public engagement and consultation exercise, which started even pre-COVID-19, which seems so long ago now. The amendment that resulted from it only applies to the 80 hectares or 200 acres along 2nd Street in the area. In terms of policy background, the provincial policy statement and the county's official plan, of course, do seek to direct urban development to appropriate locations on full municipal services, et cetera. And the secondary plan is intended to achieve those goals on sort of a neighborhood scale. As I already mentioned, it is already designated, but has to be refined, if you will, through the secondary planning exercise before it can be subject to development. The municipality did undertake an extensive public and stakeholder engagement. And of course, council has just heard from a resident that is in opposition to the proposal. And based on my review of the material, I am satisfied and I'm aware that the local municipality through that process was aware of that information was aware of the landowner's concerns prior to adopting the official plan amendment. There are two more things I'd just like to note. There were, through our review of the finalized document, there were a few typographic, very small changes or errors, if you will, in the report or in the final official plan amendment, I should say. And of course, municipalities can make those kind of typographic changes, but to be very clear for the public record, I did include both official plan amendments in my report. So the one with the errors and then the cleaned up version. And then there is one change where I would recommend that council make a more substantive modification. And it really just stems from the wording of the amendment not being fully aligned with the county council's access policy and entrance bylaws, which don't permit right-in, right-out entrances. So the report does review the existing and the proposed wording, and we did work with Strathroy Caradoc staff, and they are in agreement with that modification. So in the end, it is my opinion that amendment number 12, subject to that modification to address county transportation concerns, is consistent with the PPS and it conforms to the intent and purpose of the county and the Strathroy Caradoc official plans, and approving it would have regard for the decision of council of the municipality of Strathroy Caradoc. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Dirk. Any questions or comments, clarifications from council at this time on this report? Councillor Mayhew.
Yes, Dirk, I always appreciate delegations. It's good to hear outside opinion from planners. But when I went through the report and when I listened to the opposition, different zonings for different areas, language like that and restrictions that have been mentioned in terms of garage setbacks and things of that in the neighborhood, these are not uncommon statements in planning or plans of subdivision. There are comparables out here, or there are comparables in existence that align with the decisions that Strathroy, in your own opinion, have. You've seen this before?
Through the chair, yes. Official plans and zoning ultimately do have different provisions for different areas. The garage issue, for example, that's something that's sort of newer in planning, to try to avoid snout houses and some of those things where the garage is the dominant form along the street. What an example would be Middlesex Center in Kamoka, Kilworth. That area has some very specific policies that seek to keep them within a certain distance of each other to try to address the street. So yeah, I would agree with the statement that there are those differences in planning documents. Even within the same municipality, there can be those differences.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council? Councillor Smith.
If I could, through the warden to Dirk, just thinking back to the previous delegation and specifically his property and the property next door. So it's my understanding, so since in 2019, they were looking at some possibility of this, the developing of their own property. Is that, if this was approved, would that be discouraged for them to be able to have those 2 or 3 lots on that specific property? Or I'm just trying to figure out, going forward, or is that plan, if they weren't going to develop that at all and hold on to that piece of property, will it not be developed alongside any of the future development? What I'm trying to get at is, when you drive down, say, Fanshawe Park Road into London, there's a few houses that they held out during development time, and they're just kind of stuck there along Fanshawe Park Road facing Fanshawe and not in part of this, like a subdivision agreement or subdivision development. And it makes it very awkward in the future development of that. So I'm just wondering, are we kind of at a standstill at this gentleman's property, that will they be able to do their own thing, or does it have to be as a whole when we're looking at these lands being developed? I hope that makes sense. It didn't really make sense in my mind, but I know what I'm trying to come across. I'm sleep deprived with a newborn at home.
Through the ordinance, it's a bit of a difficult question to answer, really. The official plan would seek to have that entire area develop in a certain manner, and there's a residential designation and a medium for the areas along 2nd Street. Whether the individual property can develop separate from the neighboring property or not, I haven't done that analysis.
Okay, and I think that would be interesting to know. I'm sure that's what the landowner's wondering, is if he's able to go forward with what they had planned to do a few years ago, whether this is approved or not.
Okay, I think that's more a comment, Councillor Smith. Yeah. Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, you do have a recommendation in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and seconder. Councillor Warwick and Councillor Robb. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, jumping ahead then to our, got your new business, and now we do have to go into closed session. It is to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. So a mover and a seconder to move into closed session at 2:15. Councillor Elliott, and Councillor DeVete. All opposed? And that's carried. And we are